Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. What's cracking like everyone's Monday? How was work? How was kicking back at home? That's what you did. And how was school? If you're an unlucky sod and you had school today and you're not in school holidays, welcome on in. Nah, bro. Every time. I'm gonna hit you with it every time, bro. It's full the intro at this point. Every goddamn time. How was work, Mr. Raw? How you doing, Jazz? Welcome to the stream. Another raffle. Yeah, run another raffle for you guys in chat. Make sure you guys use exclamation mark join to get in there. Oh, the tunes. You mean I said a good part and I muted it? Mate, it's not my fault. It's just a banger playlist, alright? It's just a banger playlist. But we're chilling here. I'm sitting in the chord that the Federal Few hangs out in most of the time. Just chilling out. It's just on Twitch tonight. We're doing any multi-streaming. This is gonna be a nice chill one. Make a bit of money. Oh shit! Thank you for the gifted sub. Gifted 51. Thank you so much, Mr. Raw. It's not necessary, but always appreciated. You gave it to Jazz. Jazz the brokey should already have a sub probably, but thank you so much. But yeah, we're gonna buy the agency, get a bit of money, so we have enough to get the art gallery upgrade, and we can get into the courts center heist tomorrow. Yeah, you have a new badge now, I think too. You have a was it Mastermind Don badge? But without much further ado, we'll go to the game screen, and I'll yeah, nice. And we'll unmute these Muppets in Discord, but you guys won't be able to hear them on stream. I'll be able to hear them, but depends how loud they are. We'll have to mute them back up again. Try not to react. You guys are menaces.
How can I assist you, sir?
Look at you now. Yeah, I'm rolling in it. The things these guys are saying. Yeah, I know how to work my sound mixing, unlike Shanks. I actually have Discord muted. That's alright. If you just wait till tomorrow's, or it's Wednesday's short, mate, you'll get your Shanks fix. I've done some magic and made it sound like he didn't fuck up the sound mixing. How you doing though, Crimson 2? Welcome to the stream. What are we gonna do here? What is the first port of call? I want to go restock and do a wheel spin. Alright, so we're gonna do a wheel spin and then we're gonna go from there. We're gonna get some more crates coming in. I want to make some money. I did practice what's it called? I practiced the Kaya Perico heist, so I could actually figure out what I'm doing. I've done it like twice now, but we're not doing too well. We're not exit via helicopter. That's alright. We quickly fly down. Just do the cargo warehouse. And then fly out of there.
Of course, sir.
Practiced it, yeah, pretty much. I had to, I watched a guide and just was like, what the fuck am I doing wrong? Because like, I did it with Nashi and I had no idea. Like, none at all. Not at all. And look at that, 230 stream watch streak is pretty good effort, eh? God damn. But we're rolling in the cash at the moment. We're doing pretty well. You got 3.8 mil, so we're doing alright. Definitely can afford the agency and the upgrades for it. Bought your first ever car again? Well, IRL or in game? I mean, in the game, the first car I had was the LG RH8 done up like the Fast and Furious skyline. So I was 14. I love that Benny's update. Yeah, true. I was actually just talking to someone today about the Sabre Turbo and how like sick the Sabre Turbo is. And it's a shame that's no longer on one of the meta cars. Yeah, I was talking to Raw about it. Sabre Turbo definitely on top. I just love the upgrades you can do it. I would get the San Andreas light in the back window all the time. Get their cool pipes on it. Always had one like black and white with the white stripes. Oh, it's sick. Absolutely sick. But when you get an agency, I also want to get a car wash. I've been kind of waiting until I'm on stream to get a car wash, but I want to get the agency first because that's on sale. We also have to deliver our bunker. So it's probably worth doing that you know, that cheeky, what is it, the server reset, but nah. Yeah, I've got a few cars in mind. I want to get some race cars going. Ooh, stash house. We'll get that on the way back out. Don't get distracted. But yeah, I want to get a few cars for racing. I have a few in mind. But it's about getting the money together, like you said, not being a brokey no more. I fucking hate you guys. I hate you guys so much. No, it's just... yeah. Teasing me. About a mil off a mansion. You're doing well.
Hey, you got it.
Well.
Leave it to me.
Fucking oath. That's a good. 12 mil is pretty hard to get to. It takes a while to grind, eh? Terrible, dude. All right, I'm gonna go to the stash house, do the wheel spin, and we can buy in an agency. It is. I've been doing pretty well though. Well, I haven't bought anything since getting the mansion. No upgrades or nothing. You know what I mean? My plan is though, is to like get agency, car wash, and then I want to get this MOC before the sale ends. Because like, yeah, don't need to get the upgrades and don't really need it for the bunker, but get it while it's in sale. I can get one for like 400k without upgrades. And if I want to weaponize any cars, I'm going to need it, right? So, unless I buy the upgrade for my mansion, to be fair. Missed the stash house though, got distracted. Probably better off doing the wheel spin as soon as possible anyway. I'll boost the bunker from the mansion. Yeah, I was having a look today, and like the vehicle workshops are pretty limited. It's pretty annoying. Not gonna lie.
Ready for some real excitement? Bet on the ponies at the Inside Track, the premier horse racing lounge at the Diamond Casino and Resort.
Get the spin going. We're gonna get car, please, maybe. No. 20k is good though. I'll take that.
Hello.
I've also been made aware multiple times I look too much like GTA Man's character, and after watching some YouTube today, I think whoever keeps saying that is not wrong. I need to change this. Alright, let's paint this. Might as well just buy it from in here. Alright, let's have a look. It's the Rich Dynasty 8, this one, executive. Now the agency I was thinking of was the one at Canals, because I've been trying to base everything down at this part of the city. And it's right next to the Maze Bank Weds, so not too bad. Don't need to worry about wallpaper or art or highlights right now. Oh, so if we get none of these upgrades, what are they? How much do they cost? 288, that's actually not too bad. I did save up a bunch of money to buy it. Accommodation's only 100. Vehicle workshop's the most expensive thing. You can always renovate and put this stuff on later. That's actually not too bad. You probably get this and the Armory's a gun shop. Do you make money from it? Or is that it? Is it not worth it then? Probably not worth it, but the accommodation is good, so you can spawn there. And the vehicle workshop is good, so you can get the weaponized vehicles, right? But... oh, it is good. It's very worth it. Boom. Well, that's what I thought. That's why I was grabbing it. So I might as well get all these upgrades. Plus a locker there. Yeah, I have a locker in my MC clubhouse. It's the only other business I got one. Well, I'm getting with these upgrades and I actually don't lose that much money. I thought it would spend more. Send. Alright. Well, do we do the setups for that? Make sure it starts resupplied and put the boost on. I'll do one a block over. And it's right next to Maze Bank West, which is the free office, right? So it's actually not a bad little setup. Let me go do this stash house that I bloody forgot about, but let me go back to the mansion, boost shit at the bloody acid lab. Then we're on for grind time. So I'm definitely gonna spend the extra money to move my things and do shit like that. Like, I don't know. I know it's like not really worth it, but at the same time it's nice for like the head lore. Like just trying to roleplay in the game, I just don't have much roleplay in it, right? Ah, see, so it's just like what the mansion's replaced. But see, I didn't really get much into the nightclub update, and the more I look into that, the more I'm like, holy shit, that's pretty worth it too, right? And like with the Terabyte, it has the same stuff, and so is the arcade, so I already had a master control terminal at the arcade too, which I haven't been using. I haven't even done the setup missions for the arcade yet, which is also probably dumb, because that generates you passive income too, right? Yeah, well I know it's like, and it's good with like the MC businesses, which I don't own any of, which is the reason why I'm trying to set up some cash only, you know? Oh, don't die. Yeah, yep.
Fucking piece of shit.
And I just like, I know that I've already got the counterfeit cash factory, but then it's not worth it getting like the weed and the document forgery, right? So there it is. 02 12 02 12 87. Oh, come on. Yeah, true, because that's what I'm gonna get to. That was 02 12 87, right? Is that a good memory? Yeah. But, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. Don't mind slow grinding. Alrighty. Wonder where it's going to get restocked. Definitely want to boost the bunker as well. What we'll do is set up for the agency and then buy the car wash because we can afford it. Oh nice, that was asset supplies. Perfect. Yeah, so we'll talk about being a role player, Crimson, you know, playing FDG and whatnot, and we just moved back to online. Because you seem like you've always played a lot of online, maybe got bored of it and then moved to roleplay. As roleplay has done the same thing and you moved back before GTA 6. I guess there's a lot of hype around it, that's kind of why I'm playing it again, so it would make sense.
Here at Merryweather.
I can get ammo drops or something now. Or is it the mercenary backup? And anyone else in chat playing regular GTA Online? Are you all still role-playing? Enjoying that? Yeah, I'm feeling somewhat the same. There's a couple servers I'm thinking of sussing out. Like, I was gonna probably play Zephyr, and give that a good go, because a lot of the guys in this call are doing it. And that no pixel app's in, so just sort of waiting on that and hoping for the best. Alrighty.
Good to see you.
How full is this? Checked out Tide. Tide's alright. Yeah, FDG is the only one that I've like played like briefly and seen the peripheral. I used to watch a lot of Broken AU, and he streamed it all the time. Ran like a little car shop down at oh, is it down near the canals? Yeah, right. Prodigy looks nice. But it's just another, like, you know, paid application server, which is a little rough. Understand, but it's also, it's rough. Alright. Now I've got no ammo. Yeah, I know Broken. Broken, was one of my, I like aspired to be like Broken. He was my first big raid. I remember he raided me and I had, he had like 30 viewers. I remember freaking out, being like, oh my god, thank you so much. I'm still friends with him on Steam. I was in his Discord, my missus is still, and Crave, who's one of the mods here, is from his stream. Honestly, I owe a lot to Broken. He's a G. He's an absolute G. I love Broken. He's a good bloke. It's a shame he doesn't stream anymore, but it makes sense as well. Life just changed for him. Quickly do a quick raffle for you guys too in chat. Make sure you guys use exclamation mark join. Alrighty. Gotta see what supplies the end product of the bunker's at. Oh, we got a little Pokemon, Draco. Up to the mansion. Yeah, do miss Broken. I haven't even seen him online in Steam in a while. I wish I didn't leave his call, but I was just doing like a Discord clean out. I'm sure you guys all know what it's like. Just flogging off all the cords that you're in, getting rid of it, you know? Boom. Let's land this. Nice. Make it easy for the people that can't fly. Oh, I haven't been on my roof yet. Holy shit.
Greetings, sir.
Right, sick. Oh, I should be doing me daily like push-ups and stuff. It's like bloody Fallout 76, but you get bonuses for doing it in Fallout 76.
May I help you, sir?
Oh, hold on. Before we do that, let's make sure it's got supplies. I might need to sell some bunker supplies too, chat. Oh no, I'm mad. Could buy some more stock, but might as well. Alright. Then we go boost it. And we can deliver it after we do some agency stuff. Boom, boom, boom. Happy as
How can I
Harry.
assist you, sir? Very good, sir. I'll make the arrangements.
And the last thing I'm gonna check is make sure the cash factory's got full supplies. Alright, 7:30. Oh, I got a bloody log out of it. Can't resupply it. MC businesses if you're a bloody CEO. Annoying. Need to also bloody... I still need to buy more businesses, to be honest. Need more money. Need more money, chat. That's what the grind's about though, right? Oh, and Raw stole the chippies, nice. Resupply. Alright, sweet. Let's go down the agency and suss it out. Alright. Let's go. There's an argument going on here. Phone's going off. Right, to the agency. And there's there setup missions for this? I'm sure there is, right? That's the right building. I was thinking, is that the building there? It's like, yes, it is. Do I have a helipad? Can we land on top of the roof? Surely, right? Oh, that's nice and easy as well. Holy shit, do all these have these animations down to now? That's crazy.
Hey, can you just hold there for a second, please? Boss, you got a visitor. Oh, yeah? That's who it is. Okay. Sorry about that. I didn't know who you were. I won't make that mistake again. Justin here.
Hey, what's cracking? So what you think about all this? Shit, we looking good, right? Look, this is our business. You feel me? You put the bread down, shit, you the owner. I'm the manager. Franklin Clinton, dawg. And that over there is my old ass homie.
It's Franklin.
Shit, he don't get around too much no more. Man, everybody I asked about setting this thing up, they all pointed straight at you. A genuine, real reputable. Now me? Shit, I'm a hustler that made it big. Big house, nice cars, a family, and everything. But damn, man, I miss getting these fucking hands dirty. And from what I hear, you ain't got that problem. You run your own shit, and I like that. Hey, look, come walk with me. I want to show you something.
Franklin got old,
Down the
chat.
streets, I know real good, because that's where I'm from. But now I work with rich folk who got rich folk problems and no fucking idea how to deal with them. You know, like the kid might stole a car, or they might owe money to the wrong fucking people, or their wife might be screwing the tennis coach. But guess what? My homies can help them with all that. Now this here, this is your office. I'm gonna get all these jobs for us, and they gonna show up on this computer right here.
Alright, so you do, was it like 200 contracts to
Client, man.
get the highest
Hey,
paying,
listen,
like,
and we straight.
what, daily pay?
Hey, that's our hacker right there, Imani. She works up on the operation floor where all the high-tech shit at. Oh, shit. Hey, man.
Good stream, thank you, Centerlink.
Man, these kids, man.
Wait on.
Knock, my politically incorrect racial epithet.
Zeke has to do a
What that shit
Bogdan for Centerlink.
What are you doing here,
Yeah.
Lamar?
Nah, the question is,
But you have to do a
what are
Bogdan.
you doing here?
I am
Is that
streaming.
who you bringing in with you? Why you didn't tell me? I'm the one who called that pimp, put him up on everything, dog. And you motherfuckers got the nerve to cut me out? Well, I got
Zeke
two
has to do a
words for
boggy
y'all.
woggy.
Finders, motherfucking
Doing a bog for
people.
everyone.
Who y'all
Yeah, no,
are.
100%.
I'm a black
Yeah,
guy
I'll tell him. I'll tell him.
Man, hold on,
Shit.
dog. Man, I was gonna
Yeah,
look out for you. Chill
Zeke's
out,
doing
all right?
Bogdans for everyone. One for Shanks, one for Raw, and one for Danny.
I'm part of
Yeah,
San
yeah, yeah,
Andreas'
100%.
blood and cannabis scene. I remember this dude when he was broke as fuck. Could barely get a motherfucking coach.
What a
seat.
maker.
Now all of a sudden eating grapes in the cockpit with the captain.
I'm gonna run out of you guys to chat.
You,
Sorry for
I
talking
ain't
shit
finna
there.
go in on your dog ass because you know what's happening, but I ain't tripping. Cause now
Lamar.
it's LD's turn to come up. How's that for a sample?
Okay, I see you. Nigga, this some good shit.
You damn straight. That's that payow.
All right. Hey, you get going on those. I'll be in my office, all right?
Right. Who was that badass love fist looking bitch? I mean, nice young lady with the profitable posterior right there.
Nigga, that's Imani. That's Pearly, nigga, the homegirl's daughter. She handle all our hacker type shit.
Ooh, that's Pearly daughter. I should have known. She hacking this shit too? I didn't even know they had a computer. Damn, I feel old.
Tell me about it. You get going on those jobs. I'm gonna go work on this big client for us, all right?
Unconfirmed.
Wait. You mean big client like Tony McTony? Come on, man. Tell me you got Tony McTony. See if Tony McTony will post my weed on his page, man. You got me, Frank? Come on, man.
Whatever I got going, man, you got going. So I'm gonna look out for you. Hey, I'll be in my office. You keep doing what you doing.
Man, he be lying like a motherfucker. Anyway, though, now look at you. You feel like somebody now, huh? You OG now. Your nuts is almost big as mine, but they won't be. Not at all.
Oh boy, you need to do that, Snooze, but anyway. Yeah, nice. You got Franklin as a contact. Log in, start contracts, start businesses. Ooh, and we get VIP clients, which I'm assuming is the doctor, right? Gotta be the doctor, right? And this is our safe. Alright. Now, I don't care if my biker business gets raided, so I'm gonna get in as an MC president. Oh, it's a little bit slow to uptake. Should be good now though, Crimson. F.
Hey, what's up? I got you on this communicator thing, and I can see what your ass doing on the screen. So no creepy shit, alright? Now, like I said before, I'm a hustler who made it. I got in with a crew of dudes with some real experience. They taught me how to operate on a serious level. No more hood shit for me.
That's so unlucky. No.
We gotta set up like this. Hey, look, click on the security contract page and check that shit out. Hey, so
We're
look,
done.
these the jobs we got right now. After the guys showed me how to make moves, we pulled a big ass scope. And I
Oh, Crimson got 100k, nice.
I was making investments, you know, other plays and doing real good. But none of that shit hit right. And then I figured I should use my motherfucking street knowledge with these contacts. And that's the business right there. I'm a fixer to the rich and famous. But you can only go so
Should we
far
do these?
alone, you know what I'm saying? So I needed a grade A partner with grade A capital and grade A skills. Someone to help me turn my hustle into a major operation. And so here we are. These clients ain't exactly
Freak. All the prices are on the commands page. I can tell you a couple of them though.
But look, for now the work is robberies, recoveries, assassinations, rescues, and all that shit. You know what I'm saying?
There was one more.
Once you find a job you like, select it here. Then Imani and me will start moving on our side. And hey, I appreciate you want to keep a low profile. That's why my name is on the door, and I'm the face of this shit. You know what I'm saying? So I'm working the contacts and you moving in the streets. Some of these can be real tricky, homie, but I'll let you know. And I'll make sure the fucking payout is worth it. Sounds good?
There's
Alright, well, I'll get working on the A-list catch. Somebody who will
dust
put us on the
balls,
damn
quick
map.
balls, timer balls, repeat balls, and some of those are pretty cheap. Like, so, yeah, the dusk ball works better. I think it's after 6 p.m. at night. The quick ball works better if you throw it like when the Pokemon appears. And then the repeat ball works better on the second and third throw. Net balls work better against insect Pokemon. Dive ball works better against water Pokemon. Nest ball works better against, I think it's bird Pokemon? Blind? I think so. But yeah, there's a few. But easy cash once you get it sorted. Yeah, exactly. Let's pump a couple of these. Please don't. I can sound mix, dude. It's been muted the whole time. Why are you freaking out? Fuck. Only Shanks and Centrelink did it, so only they love me. That's fair enough. You've been here the whole time. I'm just joking. Sorry, I'm not trying to trigger you guys. I'm sorry. What's that text? Fuck. How do I get back upstairs? How do we get out of here? What am I doing? Get upstairs to the roof. These guys are saying the dumbest shit. I shouldn't be in a Discord call while we're on stream, but it's a good test actually. So I've got rid of ray tracing on GTA because I believe that was making my VRAM max out, and I've also again gone through and changed settings.
Hey, look, I got some straightforward shit here. Just the way I like it. The CEO of Go Local Railroad got a problem, and it's called the
So yeah, you're not wrong, Crimson. Were you taking the piss out of me for saying raid casting then? What the fuck? That wigged me out. Someone else said it. What the, now I'm so confused. I'm wigging the fuck out. I don't think you guys understand. Because I just said it and then yeah, I think someone else said it in the call and I thought you were taking the piss out of me and I'm like, what, you could hear me the very second I said that? I thought I was muted. Stop tracking Ray, doesn't answer questions. Don't break me. What are you guys doing? I get this mission done. Alright, chat. Fuck. Oh, this is us. I have an open crew session. Get in here. Look at that. Professional. What? Oh, it's settling. I don't trust that. Call 911! Getting griefed. Suck a dick. I wouldn't either. That was perfect, bro. I destroyed my own, but that was perfect. I'm not gonna lie. How good was that? Little takeoff. Go turn off homing missiles though, so I don't freak anyone out. How you doing, Jordan? Welcome to the stream. It's crack like your Monday. Hope you stubbed your toe. Did you have bloody work today, mate? You need a job? Nah, welcome into the stream. That's just mean, Danny. I don't know why you wish that on me. I think they're stuck. Alright, let's turn the home missile back on. Bam. You have to eliminate one of the dudes, right? No, doesn't really matter. We'll eliminate all of them anyway. I hope they start next week. That's good though, bro, because you were saying that your medical came back all good, right? So you're just fucking... Oh, shit. You just gotta do it, right? Get there, get in there, get sorted. Bro, I've never really heard of many people failing medicals, right? Like, you seem like a pretty fit young fella, you know? Being very lazy here too, by the way, chat. Sometimes it's a little bit rough. I have turned that timer down so it doesn't do that as much, but it's not perfect. Let's land this though, because I can... It's a bug. Hey guys. Why are you guys texting me random shit? They put too much disturb on. Yeah, that's efficient. You got, yeah, get wrecked, Raw. Or was it Raw trying to catch Pokemon? Is that why it said that? I wasn't even paying enough attention. Like, I should stream more on Mondays. This is funny. Instead of doing the 12 o'clock streams when everyone's either asleep or at work. Do it now. Oh my god, I'm dying. There's a guy behind me. I don't have any armor there either. Shit! Oh, that's not good. Mission on my shot. That wasn't on purpose. Yeah, that's... Oh my god, I'm gonna die. Honestly, that's my bad. I gotta catch up a little bit more. I'm gonna fix it up. It's alright though. That's what happens when you make a custom little mini game. I've done well though, alright? I could bring battling in to make Jason's brother happy, and then I'm professional, right? Get some kills here. If it isn't the Vargos. Okay, no. Can't hit my shots. What the? There we go, that's much better. Why do these guns spawn? Bring the law-friendly gangs in. Aren't there law-friendly gangs in bloody No Pixel? Am I tripping? No, how you write it? No hashtag. No hashtag. Sorry, bro. That's the only thing. I think you can hashtag the Pokemon. Oh, I'm gonna die shit. You can hashtag the Pokemon, but you can't hashtag the slots. It assumes you might do that. Oh my lord, dude. Really? Or are you just making a funny? There you go, bro. Pichu's a good catch as well. I was playing when I was streaming the other day. The Pikachu came up, and the Pikachu bloody battle cry is like actually a person saying like the Pikachu, you know what I mean? Like from the bloody TV, like the same as the TV show, and it wigged me the fuck out. I was like, what the fuck? That doesn't sound like a Pokemon cry. Because the rest of them were like their actual Game Boy sounds. Yeah, that's my bad then. I'll fix that up. That's a pretty fair assumption to make. In Gen 6, yeah, but I've got all that. Alright. Oh wait, may or may not have the Gen 3 cries. The Emerald version. Hence why we got moving GIFs instead of just flat PNGs. God, I really can't aim tonight. Oh god. How many of those spawn? Oh, one captain remaining. So we're nearly done. Where's this captain? Oh. Sweet. Easy. Hitting the Rugalon, getting out of there. I have to get back into playing Pokemon. I was doing a little yellow playthrough recently. And I want to get back to playing Diamond because Diamond was my favourite Pokemon game. I smashed so much of it. Might not be the best one. I was doing a playthrough of Fire Red and Leaf Green with Jazz. I thought I was doing Fire Red at one point and she was doing Leaf Green. So, just to tell you guys my thought process right now as well. Excuse me. Gonna bloody... all these texts. Gonna do the 3 contracts. Just to see what they're like. Run them through for once. Because I haven't done them. And then I'm gonna probably buy the car wash. We'll go from there. I think my bunker might be full too. We've done some new research unlocking as well. Yeah, you got some Pokeballs. I was actually just explaining to Crimson how you can buy like netballs, dust balls, and all that kind of stuff. And some of those are cheaper and actually better depending when you use them, right? Because like dust balls are better at night, netballs are better on insect Pokemon. Quick balls are better if you throw them when the Pokemon, like closer to when the Pokemon appears.
Hello. Hey partner, what's up? Listen, I got some news for us. Shit, some great news. I don't want to say too much over the phone, but remember that big client I was fishing for? The kind of A-lister that'll give us that jump? Well, check this out. We got a meeting over at the golf club. Yeah, that's right. It's all set. Hey, they playing that boring-ass game all day. So just head over there when you ain't handling shit for the office, all right? Oh, yeah, and someone in the clubhouse, they gonna help you get dress code compliant. Hey, I'll see you soon, all right?
Sounds like we're going to do that VIP client, right? Is it draft the bat, or were you not so lucky? One can hope, right? Let's buy some armor, though. Get some snacks? No? Oh, what? So you can teleport from here as well. That's sick, dude.
Stay safe, boss.
That's actually gangster. Alright, so we're looking for the armory. armory. Upstairs. Yeah, that's it there. 100% the armory. Oh, that's mad. That's like the little intro text.
Got some cool stuff here for you. Yeah, one night we should sneak chop a huge ass T-bone. I'd love to see you rip that shit apart.
Oh, bro, so I can just catch or buy stuff straight off him? Oh, mad. I was actually talking about buying rebreathers too tonight, so you can buy them from here. So that's everything we can grab. Browse gear. Night vision. Is it handy having any of this stuff? Do we even need it? Do we need it? Like, tell us when we need it anyway.
Yeah, I wasn't that close with Franklin when we was coming up, but I knew him a little. Always had respect.
What have I got in here?
I mean, man.
So I can literally buy every weapon now.
And now here we are.
That's actually pretty gangster, I'm not gonna lie. Because I don't have like an AP, don't have a vintage. Ceramic pistol, and that's like the best one, right?
That thing will do the rest.
Combat PDW. What am I missing?
Last time I used one of these.
And these are pretty good too, right? The battle rifle, the service carbine.
My body count jumped.
Alright, buy more armor. So it's not as cheap as the gun van. Yeah, true. I just didn't buy that upgrade for the mansion, did I? Actually, that's probably another thing too. I should probably be buying some of the mansion upgrades, right? Kind of dogging myself a little bit there. No, I don't have that unlocked yet.
Guaranteed scare the shit out of just about anyone.
Alright. We got armor. It's the chill room. Alright then, well, do we travel... What is it? To the golf club, do this VIP work, right? Probably start from the computer, but... Go back to this way. Ah! I hope it's straight off the bat, that'd be sick. Now, where's the fucking way out here? I hate that you can't jump inside though. Otherwise I'll be jumping everywhere.
Everything okay?
It's Neville Bartos. No money. No, here, no cash. Is that actually his name? Are you not fucking with me? Because if that's actually his name, that's glorious. And if you're fucking with me, that's also glorious. That's double glorious. I'll take that. That's the ultimate fuck with. Alright, let's go see Franklin. Got a whack chopper. You just missed out, Crimson 2. We had old Chopper Reed as a part of our bikie gang. My real life mates Cheech made a roleplay character named Mark Brandon Chopper Reed. Fucking, he's a funny cunt too, eh? Not a role player, which is probably what makes it even funnier. First time fucking playing Grand Theft Auto 5 on PC, he used role playing. Sacrilegious. Alright, how does this work? Let's go. Was it like a full mission? I guess that makes sense. We can solo it, right? Solo on it. I could probably do it with these guys. Go rep the Franklin. Stay green. Let's go.
Hey, you made it. Nice threes. Hey, how do I look? Let's roll. Hey, you know in Vinewood, This is where all the deals get done. But if you really want in on it...
Franklin's made it big. Look at him. He's cleaned up.
All right, look, follow my lead, because these dudes straight moguls. You see that skinny one right there? That's DJ Pooh. That's our plug, homie.
Neville Bartos. Right there in the flesh.
Nah, I'm going again.
Come on, really?
I can do better.
Is this what we got all dressed up for?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I knew I was gonna hate this. I don't like sports that you can snack when you play. Next time we're going roller skating.
Hey, good to see you, bro.
Hey, what's up, Pooh?
Man, who the fuck is this?
Shit, it's my business associate.
Associate. Shit getting real.
Hell yeah.
Come on. Now, you sure about this?
Hell yeah, I'm sure. Shit, we ready, we set up, we ready to go, dog.
How much do they pay all these
Y'all
rappers?
better deliver.
We paid them
Fuck
so
my
much for
too.
this.
Yo, Dre, this is Franklin Clinton. This is his associate. They gonna help us get that thing done, man.
What's up, dog? Appreciate you for having us.
Not a problem. Just give me a sec.
Dude was a menace. Genuine larrikin.
You know what? I'll take a mulligan.
That was a perfect shot. You could sneeze and blow that in.
Nah. Hold up. I got this.
This is a stupid fucking game. Things I do for a hit record.
So wait. You're the one that's gonna find the phone, right?
Excuse me, Mr. Young, is it? Look, we're gonna play through, okay? Give you plenty of time to finish up whatever this is.
You're gonna what?
Come on. We'll just be a second. Right, Dre?
Play through. We're gonna play through.
Listen, you ain't playing through shit, motherfucker.
Oh, very nice. That's very nice.
This place is going to crap.
What did you just say?
You heard what I said. How are we supposed to play around with this bullshit? This used to be a club for pros.
Hey, man, back the fuck up and shut your bitch ass up.
No, screw this. I still have friends on the board. My wife's having an affair with the owner. Every single one of you is going to be blackballed before you reach the 9th tee.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Come on, Eugene. Me and you going to make some calls and
Smack
see
him.
what's what.
What the fuck was that about?
Man, the fuck if I know.
With everything that's going on in my life right now, this is the last fucking thing I need.
She's having an affair with the owner? I gotta call this guy.
Nah. Fuck that and fuck this. If these two guys have what it takes to find my property, then they can definitely take care of this shit.
We got you, homie.
Good. Cause I'm done with swinging these fucking clubs, man.
What are you doing?
Listen, take care of these fucking assholes before they make trouble for me. And if you do, you can handle my business. My phone wasn't
Yeah, to be
lost.
real with you, it's pretty funny. Yeah, the big cancer, right?
On that fucking phone that I really
And
care about.
it went back, did more interviews, omitted the rest of them, just couldn't get caught. Jim Jeffries talks about it a fair bit too. Yeah.
And I'm dead ass serious about that.
Scary,
Come on, guys. let's
but
get the
like,
fuck outta here.
seemed like a real
You were
dude.
kind of pissed off before they said anything. You really need to try something for your mood.
I am. It's called golf.
Well, golf ain't working. Next time, we're gonna go skate at the rink.
Hey, you two bitches
Alright,
for the
I'm trying to look
shoot me
hard.
shot.
Let's fuck these guys up.
Where you going? I thought you liked to talk. Come on, man.
Already know how good Don is at driving.
Hey,
Oh
you
shit.
driving with your eyes closed or what? Hey, get after him, man. Let's go.
Might have to take that one back. Crashes immediately as I'm not even finished the sentence.
Eugene? We have a serious problem here. I know, Raymond. Just drive.
Hey, we ain't gotta kill no one here. We just gotta get them to stop and put a beating on their ass. Now ram them motherfuckers.
Oh, I can't shoot. Damn. You ram him. Oh, hit the next guy then. Fuck him.
Come on, business partner. Let's show these fools we home. Hey, keep on.
Fucking hell, man.
These things are shit, dude. Pretty funny mission, but. Get him.
Just couldn't keep
You
your
made your
fucking
point.
mouth shut, huh?
You can stop now.
Hey, you
Damn it,
cut
this
the
is
club
my personal
asshole.
cart.
Just fuck with the wrong guy.
Right, I need a bit more
Is
speed
this
to actually get the
motherfucker going
fucking.
through the movie studio?
Get him actually scared. Let's go. Shit.
Man, shit, I know one of the producers around here. I hope his ass ain't at work today.
Right, so he's scared.
Come on, man, he's giving us the slip.
That's good enough, right? I don't know how that works, but anyway. Right. Oh no! Oh, that would have been it too.
Look, look. Man, can this piece
That
of
would
shit
have
go
been
any
fucking
faster?
it. Let's go. Come on. Such a slow thing. Here we go. La-boom.
Damn it! That way.
He's gonna go left or right here. Right. Can I hit him? Bam!
Play through this.
Oh, dude, this is such a shitbox. It's so slow.
Hey, come on, man. Fuck with him some more.
Let's make this corner. Yeah, I got him. Hey, is that a new construction site?
Again. Hey, look, lay off a little bit. We need this asshole in one piece so we can have a little talk, all right? Follow him and let's
Sort
see
of.
where he ends up.
Oh my god. I really don't.
Keep tailing him. So he's gonna break down. Come on now.
That exhibit was amazing.
Hey, now this the day they gonna be talking about when F. Clinton and partner is listed on the ball sack 500.
Come on. It's like that boat mission
Come on, we
in
need to find
story
this
mode.
asshole. Hey, try to pier.
Like where you start breaking down in bloody Amanda's car. Oh, it's so annoying. Takes so long to drive back to the Santa's Customs.
Hey, you and me landed clients the hard way. Man, I told you this where the deals get done. I didn't think it'd be like this, though.
Over here.
Shit, all right, partner. Hey, get your swing warmed up. Now let's play.
This idiot.
Hey, come on, calm down.
Hey, come on, let's explain some shit to this little bitch.
Now, good, let's just be reasonable. What's your price?
Nah, motherfucker, there's only one language your ass gonna understand.
It's pretty funny. Intimidate some dude, smash him up with a golf club.
I apologize.
Man, come on, let's beat this motherfucker ass. Yeah, how that shit feel, bitch?
Like that. Take that, break a rib. Boom.
Okay.
Take that, motherfucker.
Call Mr. Young. Tell him I'll resign my membership today.
Nice.
All right.
Easy mission.
I think he done some thinking. Now let me call Dre right quick. Hey, Dre. We took care of that thing. Nah, you won't be hearing from him no more. But what about that other thing? All right, cool. Look, send it over. We'll get right on it.
Or we get another job from him too. A quick wrap up for you guys to chat. Make sure you guys use exclamation mark join to get in there. I just want to get for this one. 11k. How much of a grind is it to get to like the proper agency mission so you make the good money? I wonder. Is that something we could do tonight? I need to check my bunker, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be nearby full. Or like full enough where I could just empty it.
Yeah, man. I still got it.
Oh no. In a public lobby.
But don't touch now and shit, but still.
Hello, this is Morse Mutual Insurance.
Alright.
I'll do
Boom.
my best.
Let's go to a new lobby so I don't get done in. Nice. Close for all crew or friend session. Good crew. Alright, back to the agency again. Back in the grind. I'll check the bunker first.
Nothing refreshes like an afternoon nap, sir.
Yeah, make sure you guys use X-Ray join. You've got a minute left. Right. To the mansion services. Upstairs. Oh, I'm mad. Unlock some golf outfits. Is it here? It's a little sussy. How full is the bunker? Should we just go empty it? Yeah, it's pretty full. It's pretty full. Can I just sell it from here? Yeah, I can. Resupply it. Bam. Let's sell it. Get rid of it. 1932. Yeah, send. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. You're just a little fucking go. Boom boom. Who's gonna win this raffle? Oh, Jordan got it. 25k and Crimson splitting in half. No way! That's not cool. Mistakes made. I have 20 minutes and I spawned here. I thought it would teleport me there, eh? I actually thought that would happen. That's rough. There's only one vehicle though. Am I unlucky here? I've got two. It'll be quick. At least we're at Zenkudo. It shouldn't be too bad. Get a cool 2 mil. You can always do that. Was it a quick leaving shit? Bro, it's pretty quick though, so it should be fine. Four throws, damn it. And it escaped, no. You can also check your Pokédex too, Crimson. It's Gen 1, 2, and 3. So if you do exclamation mark Pokédex space 1, it will show you Gen 1. And same obviously for 2 and 3. Yeah, I think they'll do the last Pokédex, so you have to put the actual number in there. Could have done that a little bit better. You only have one Pokemon anyway though. So yeah, Gen 3. Lol. It was showing, I think, my Pokemon there though. Or the last person that did it. Or is it 4 vehicles? That's fucking wild, dude. At least it's these though. These are probably a bit easier to drive than fucking trucks. Where are these drop-offs? Be in the city, right? Oh, not even. Not even. Alright then. Buy yourself 2, 4 vehicles. The worst sell. And this is why you just constantly sell, right? That's alright. You have to grind it. You have to push, push, push. And I spawned at the mansion. I've got a pretty good Pokédex. I should have invited you, yes. I was actually looking at chat, being like, yeah, Raw's my lobby now too. Could have really used your help here, Raw. I'm fucked. Yeah, I was just looking at it, thinking, fuck, is there people in here? And it's too late now anyway. Yep, yeah, you're all good. That's got 4 cell vehicles. Lucky it's the dunes, but I've only got 20 minutes, so I'm like, fuck, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. It happens in the big jobs. This is why you sell them quickly and not let it save up. Just 1 or 2. Yeah. Could be worse though. Yeah, I probably will be from now on, especially when I'm doing it solo. What can like give me? an updated location, the quickest route to where I'm going. I don't feel like I need it, but, you know, it would be helpful. It would be helpful. What's the closest one? Yeah, I'm not making that great of time. I'm gonna make 5 minutes per car, basically. No, I better off going to that one there and then coming back. I probably am. Yeah, it's just a... I regret going up this hill. Get some speed. Fuck yeah, come on. Oh, well, I don't think we're getting the full 2 mil here. I don't think we're getting the full 2 mil here. I'll have to see. I swear it was going to be right on the D-pad, but it wasn't. Or D-pad, the arrow keys. Drop mines, that's sick. That's sick. Might be easier. Change lobbies. Oh, and they'll give me a new cell. I won't lose this. I might do it and just come back to this one. Oh, mad. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna do that. Because this is gonna suck. This is gonna suck. I don't have enough time. Quickly find a new session, chat. I was telling myself today I wouldn't actually do this. And I'll just come back. Or I come... Put me in the mission again? I don't want to be in a public, right? I probably made a mistake there, but anyway. Nah, yeah. And that's not even the end of the world anyway. So I'll just literally join that lobby back that I created because, you know, you guys will be in it. Should be able to join it at least. Fuck, 4 cars is so rough, but... Alright.
I trust you slept well, sir.
Idiot. Alright, let's go back to you guys. Well, the bonus is going on. That makes sense, though. Makes sense. You get 2 times the stock. Or 2 times, like, the research and all that. You get 2 times the losses. That makes complete sense to me. Oh, and the other thing is, too, the Pokédex also saves your Pokemon in the Discord. So if you go look at the Discord photos channel, it will have a little Pokédex image for yourself to have a look at. So for now, for mine has a little... Was it Bulbasaur, which will pop up in a second.
Ah, hello, sir. Sleep well?
Alright. This time, I'm going to fast travel, and I'm going to invite
Do you have a request, sir?
everyone in there. To the bunker.
Of course, sir.
Not the end of the world, though. Give Memento? Will do. I'm going to invite Raw, too, unless she's busy. Are you busy at the minute, Raw? Yeah? Yeah, that's all good, bro. Do I have more supplies on the way? I think I do, but I'm going to buy more anyway, because, you know, we're going to spend money to make money. No, I came back. I went to a public and joined back to this one, because I got 4 sale vehicles. Yeah, just scuffing it. Oh, an arbor. Yeah, bro. Well, I can always wait. I think Crimson is joining back in, just in case I get the fucking 4 sale vehicles again. And if you guys deliver, you can get like, I think it's like 30 to 50k. Just not bad if it's like done quickly. I think it's better as an MC clubhouse, right? It definitely is better as an MC clubhouse. I'll wait in here. Yeah, nice.
Hey, partner. Shit, good work out there. We in business now. Look, head back to the office when you get a sec, alright? I want you to meet the team so we can plan this thing out. Man, if the old me can see how I operate now, I don't know what he'd think. We're about to do some high-tech problem solving. When you learn that shit, you can't unlearn it, right? Shit, guess I got to thank my old crew for that.
Mad. So up to the next mission of that. Bloody, roughly how long will you be, Mr. Raw? Make it look quicker. Outside? Oh, easy. Easy. I'll just make it easy for you. Yeah, rock, bro. Oh, true, I can just invite you to the bunker too. Yeah, yeah. Get him in here. Alrighty, I'm gonna start it now. Let's go. And I think the MC business is better to be logged in as with people. I can't remember now. Is it the CEO or the MC business that'll get you more money? Either way, it doesn't matter. So Los Santos. Let's go. Thank you guys for helping me too. Thanks, Raw, too, bro. I have to help you out. Kind of why I stayed in this call. So if anyone wanted to like do deliveries, I'd help them.
Here Merryweather goes again, pissing in our soup. Get the weapons to the buyers and look out for those private security goons. Maybe good to have someone manning the gun and...
Yeah, nice. That's nice and easy. It's just one delivery too. Yeah, that shortcut is dangerous. Not in these cars, to be fair, actually. The pounder, I reckon, is too easy to flip. Doing the jump, everything else is alright. Yeah, the pounder. Now, these are armoured, right? So it would have been quicker if we all got one each, but this will be done in a few seconds. Be a few minutes, smash it out. Easy money, right? We're involved. I want to buy one of these. Yeah, I'm hoping I did it the right way too, so you guys should get like 30k for doing the delivery. So I think as a CEO, you don't get, you just get like the hourly rate, but as the MC business, it's a cut of the delivery. Or the other way around. Yeah, it's one and not the other, I can't remember now though. That's nice and easy. Nah. Okay. I don't have any good gun cars, no. That's a shame. Fucked up there. It's me fucking up with the gun locker. There's no shit in there. Yeah, just one delivery spot. Even this is good, but we're all at the same delivery spot, so you can just like switch into the gunner and away you go. I have no idea how to switch seats, bro. I was trying as well. X. Sort that guy out. I really need to get a fucking SMG in here. I've really fucked up. I get those cheeky window shots. Oh, nice. Yeah, like I didn't even buy the agency tonight. How do you can switch seats in the interaction menu? What is it? What was that, sorry, bro? Yeah, that's playing from data. GTA men's level to 100 as well. That's like OG. That's why that fella was wigging out my stream the other night, right? Being like, why, you're only level 9 if you've been playing since you were fucking 13. Shut up. You're closer to 45 than me, mate. You should do 45. Fuck it, hell. I'm getting bullied here in the Discord chat. Not good. Not liking it. Easy done. That guy's dead. No, that's a headshot. Get some health going. And body armor. Gonna be dying. Well, it's a free mode thing, so you can die as much as you want, really. Little T-bone. Oh no! I was thinking that tree was going to smack us. Probably should have seen it coming. Who's going to get there first? But I think it might be me, if I don't crash again. If I can get the right line out of here. No, they're gonna beat me. Holy shit, they're flying. Well, I still beat them, but... Nice. Headshot. What the fuck are these guys? I really need another gun here. Holy shit. Nice. Dead. It's getting carried at this point. Right, I fucked up and I put my only like vehicle like SMG in the gun locker, so I'm just shooting these cunts with a pistol. Yeah. Yeah, I usually use the mini SMG, the Scorpion. Yeah, not sure. Boom, boom. Let's go. Is it the last of the breed? It is. Smashed that pretty quickly. I got to run to the toilet as well. I am busting, chat. Judge, what do you guys get? Heli behind the billboard, I can't see it. No one down. Get them all without them coming over here. Done well here. Don't know how much money you get, raw. Nice. I have more money now than when I bought the agency at the start of stream.
Look at that. All
Nice.
deliveries received. Now let's just hope they know how to use
Thank
them.
you for the help there. Now, it's way back to the agency. It's actually an AI bot, bro. It's not me. I'm not real. Never have been real. Alright, I'm a figment of imagination of my own as well. Oh, no rival players. Yeah, no. I wish I was. How you doing though, Aussie, man? How was snowboarding? I seen you did that. I didn't reply to the fucking message though because I'm a dog. I'm a dog. Yeah, bro. Look how clean it looks. Even works in vertical mode. Alright, I actually really did go to the toilet though, chat. I'm so sorry. So I'm gonna hide in here. I don't know why I brought these guys in. I don't know why I brought you in. Oh, we got another bloody cutscene. I can't run yet.
Come here.
Where'd you go, Friday Flats?
Hey, Dre sent over the number to that missing phone.
I've only been snowboarding a handful of times, but I fucking love it. It's the best pastime.
Browser game.
Wow.
No, fuck. You want to know what I found?
No, I went to Mount Borbor. There's a closer where you are.
So,
I mean, that would make sense, right?
Pretty bad.
Just assumed you went at the Jindabyne.
Of extra security to prevent remote access.
But there's other
It's
snowy
cool
peaks, right?
Until you fucking lose it, and it's a huge pain in the ass. It's firewalled. No way in, no way.
Long ass drive. Anyway, that's good to go for snowboarding would be, bro. Would be.
We got one thing, but.
But is it a holiday? Is it time away? Is it just fucking not even a holiday? You're just going on an adventure.
What is it?
You break into the FIB, find the server stacks for their mass surveillance program, stick a thumb drive in one of them to give me remote access, and don't get caught. Then I can get a full data signature and track any copies that got made.
I thought this shit was gonna be hard.
It's Miss Dr. Dre too.
I beat my bitch a long time ago. We got this, right?
I just want to know, why is it that every time I turn my back, y'all in here doing some slicing and dinicing and backroom dealings without me?
Lamar, what the fuck are you doing here?
Same thing you is, homie. Business. I need that sample
Not
I gave
Lamar.
you, dog. This is a supply and demand situation going on. LD Organics is going viral, baby. I'm supplying the green community. The whole revolution, man. And every ounce count. So I need you to kick that up.
Man, whatever,
Now, my
dog.
Colombian
Look,
friend from
this
SA
downstairs
wanted
on
to see the
my desk
snow
tomorrow.
and go
Alright,
skiing.
no dealio.
Came down with
Going
2
down
other
there.
friends, but wanted to catch
You
up
just
with
gonna
me.
go through my fucking desk?
So we went to the snow together.
My bad,
No, that's
Mr.
sick, bro.
Mogul.
That's
I
good
didn't
though.
know us lowly employees weren't allowed in your office. I wouldn't have drank your coffee.
Wait, hold on. Wait a fucking second. You ain't my motherfucking staff.
Hey,
No,
what's
that's
wrong
good. Take him out to
with
see the
dog?
snow in a not very snowy country.
Chop. Come here, boy. He old, man. Come here.
C-Dog. Come here, boy. You all over the place, man. What's happening, Chop?
Man, I don't like the look of this.
Is Chopper right?
Chop, you worrying us, dog? Man, that dog high as fuck. I can tell. It's all in the eyes, man. 100% purebred, satisfied.
Is he right? I thought they baited Chop.
Chop, what the fuck I tell you about eating weed?
You're gonna have to get the little homie some snacks.
Fucking a bit. That's sick, dude.
Major munchies in a minute. Get him like a little burrito, like a monster burrito, the wet one.
Sorry to interrupt, but the client, if we're going after this phone...
Client? What client? What the fuck?
Man, you wasn't supposed to see that.
Nigga, we done lost cabin pressure up in this motherfucker.
I'm not gonna get put straight in the mission here, am I?
Dre lost his phone. That man's a physician. You know how important that is, man? I bet it's all kinds of shit in that phone. I wonder what's in that phone. Dude been making beats for years.
Friday, we went to Brighton for the coloured houses, and Saturday went from the snow, then back to the city to get Colombian food for dinner. They wanted me to try their food, then came home, and Sunday went to the aquarium and state library. So much walking. It always is when you want to go to like the tourist spots, eh? It's never fucking easy, and it's too expensive to like obviously pay for taxis and all that kind of stuff, like all the transport. I mean, public transport's probably alright. I mean, isn't Melbourne like famous for the trams and stuff, right?
Cause I got history with these
But
FIB motherfuckers.
nonetheless,
Dog, come on.
You think you could put in a good word with Dre for me? I mean, to get him to endorse LD Organics, man, we'll be on. I'm talking about Green Giant Boo.
LD Organics.
Man, do you fucking ever listen to yourself?
I listen to me all the time. You should listen to me. Maybe then we'll know what Dre phone at, nigga.
Okay, get onto the network in your office. You know where your office is, right? Good.
alright,
And
let's
we'll
wrap
get
up you guys in chat. Please don't put me in a mission. Oh, new rewards. Sick. Alright. I just gotta have a quick break. I'll be back in a few minutes.
See ya.
Alright, I'll be back in a minute, chats. Kick back, relax, enjoy the beats. Alrighty, chat. We're back. We back. Now, what should we be doing? Let's have a look at the new career rewards. And congratulations there, Mr. Raw and Aussie getting the chippies. Thank you guys for sticking through that break and getting some chippies. Sorry I had to run away. I was busting for the loot. Now, the next thing I was kind of sussing out was the car wash. I think it's the only one I care about. There's the auto shop, there's the car wash there. So 2 of them. Oh, nice, but I need to get the Madrazo mission, and Madrazo's not called me in this playthrough yet. Nice. I guess I should probably do my missions, right? Buy some more armor. I'm trying to think about what the go should be. Let's go. I guess I still have the... I guess I have the agency mission, I think, is ready now too. Where the fuck am I going, but... The reference in here? Oh, let me have a look. Probably not. Let me have a look though. It's in here somewhere. Is it on a computer? There's a Billy there. Is it this? I'm not looking at chat. What the fuck is that? Near you? Alright. Oh yeah. What is that? Red Dead pelts? All the bracelets and that there? Is that what that is? Oh, you mean that? Oh, lol. Oh, shit. What is that, like Rosenberg? Or is that something else? I'm not getting the reference at all. No? Is it not a reference to another game? Raccoon. Vanos Gaming. Vanos Gaming? I haven't heard that in such a long time. Yo, no, I need to Googles on this. Jog my memory. That sounds so familiar. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Five Nights at Freddy. Holy shit. That's the owl logo, right? And there's the, yeah, the owl helmet, all the different videos. Holy shit. So that's, I'm literally looking at that thumbnail. That's crazy. Pretty cool. Thank you for that. Look at that. Crimson here. Oh, that's cool as fuck. So they reference streamers. Up there. That's actually gangster. Up Rockstar. Gamers, people that did their, made themselves on GTA Online, or GTA 5. It's crazy. Some of those guys have moved on and some of those guys are still doing it, right? Now, Madras hasn't called me yet to do these missions, so... we do the VIP contractor here? Because he's gonna mill, right? Or is it still a little bit yet?
Hey boss, it's Imani. So, you know your way around this app from the contracts you and the other boss were looking at, right? We're gonna run this Dre phone up from here too. First step, you gotta break into the FIB server stacks. Throw a thumb drive in the right hole, then either you escape with everything we need, or they catch you and throw you in Supermax for a couple 100 years. Your partner says it's pretty simple. Just hit the button right there on screen, and we'll get moving. In the meantime, one of Dre's people are gonna bring around the car the phone got stolen from. We can do some forensics on it, see if we can get a lead that way.
Just like most of the day, got some recovery in? Well, you need it after all your walking, bro. Like, it's always good to have that recovery day too, so you're not just going straight into work. Alright, data recovery. Infiltrate FIB to get data on Dre's stolen phone. Let's do it. So it's basically a heist. But not a heist, another raid.
Hey, it's me. Your headset working okay? I ain't gotta tell you this, but you need both hands for this kind of work, you know. Not many big-time real estate investors come.
I better start killing me from the snowboard boots. I got.
This kind of action too. Shit,
Can't walk right still. Yeah, man. Pretty rough. Like the fucking what's it called? Like the boots you wear when you're riding fucking the lycra push bikes.
So what we doing again? Oh,
some more of a raid than it is a
make a player feel like he's got back in the game more than fucking with the FIB. Alright, so I got you all the right tools.
It's a cool in between. I actually like that they added that stuff to it.
Just get that chopper over the headquarters and Imani will tell
this
us
helicopter feels really weird to fly.
It don't get more A-list than Dre, homie. So stay sharp, alright? Hey, Imani.
Another million in my warehouse too.
We're looking for Dre's phone, right? So, this is the one time we can be grateful the FIB is tracking absolutely everything.
What to do here?
We get access to their system, we'll know it all.
Yeah, but how?
Okay, their HQ is totally secure. They won't let you pass the security unless they want you to get past it. For like, an emergency or something. I'm going to fake a fire drill. They use smart systems these days, totally hackable.
Okay.
Once that's happening, they land onto the roof and go down through the skylight with the glass cutter you set them up with.
Okay, so I can just land up here.
Hey, you got that? Shit, we'll speak again when you inside.
Right. To the skylight. It'd still be fine. I need to go through and get those upgrades. Sheesh! I really need to add a sound for that instead of just having me do it, but anyway.
Okay, you're looking for the communications room.
What about being a brokey and somehow I've come through
If I got this right, it's in the corner over on the
with heaps of cash? Did he? No?
Shit! They updated the security protocol.
Oh, it's a bloody scripted.
Alright, look, don't worry.
You doing it as more personal? Yeah, it's probably better, eh? I need to add some more things. Is that what you need to do? Oh, yo, that's mad.
Sometimes you gotta do it old school.
Yeah, the thing about old school is it's kind of loud. We'll deal with it.
How the fuck do I get in here?
Get to a terminal and plug in the thumb drive.
There you go. Let's go. It's a good building to use for it, eh? I was actually talking about this earlier on stream. There needs to be more 5M scripts that integrate this stuff from online and regular story mode. This is timing.
Sweet, I'm in. I just need a little time, okay?
I don't know if I can get out of here, Crimson. I don't think I'm stuck.
Yeah, it's not so much the fire drill, more like the squad of armed guards coming to investigate the explosion.
You can get in, you can't get out.
You got that? Shit, I heard big talk about your show.
Oh?
Now let's see what the fuck you got.
Oh, there you go. No, you're good. You're good. You're good. I thought you were stuck for sure then. There's some dudes. Bam. Well, that's why you're using the grenade launcher. Alright, so just defend and wait. There's actually heaps of new MLOs and all like Y maps and stuff that are in the game now. Heaps of stuff that's just unused. You're not role playing as much though. Yeah, blap these fools. I'm kind of just sitting back letting Crimson do the work. There you go, there's a kill. Did some work. Nice. I'm not even doing anything, yeah. Pretty easy thing to defend is one way in. Yeah, it's been I think 2 weeks now since I role played. I did play a little bit of Zephyr. I did some racing and Supernova like 2 week and a half ago. Yeah, you get some streaming in, but you don't have to. If I say you have to, then you never do it, right? But I think we were talking a bit last time, right? You're thinking about moving away from and that, so I don't want to sit here and push you anything you don't want to do, bro. But I hope you're doing alright. It sounds like you are. As long as you're enjoying life, right?
Probably means the phone's been copied a few times.
Do I need to be in here? Probably not.
It's cool. I can track them all down, but I'm going to need time with one of the drives in there. I marked the rack on your GPS. Grab the drive and get back to the roof.
Yeah. Like I came back in here. You're on that fishing grind. Yeah, bro. It's good to hear. Making that moolah. Monetizing adult things instead of gaming. Well, that's fair enough, isn't it, bro? That's very fair enough. Oh, shit. Fuck off. Get out of here. Hope you guys are all doing well, though. And just, you know, chilling out, relaxing. Oh, shit. Trying to prestige in fishing, bro. Oh no, I'm gonna die. Trying to fucking do snacks and armor and shit while in a helicopter is impossible. I'm so sorry, Crimson. Hopefully I'm gonna die. Yeah? Don't get away. You can prestige? That's actually fat. It's pretty smart though, because it'll make you play more, right? Get like the game time up. Oh damn it. More hide here. Trying so hard to dodge here. Oh, don't do this to me now. I fucked up crashing. A little more money when you sell, yeah, so it's actually got a reason for it as well. Yeah. Oh, come on, bro. This is not looking good for us. Oh, it actually doesn't matter as long as we stay alive.
Bring the drive back to the agency and I'll get to work on it.
Man, good work, y'all. This is the start of something.
Hell yeah. And nice catch. I'll keep height in case I need a parachute. Alright, we should be Gucci. Done alright, I was a bit worried there. What'd you catch there too? Oh, Electri. My favourite has to be the electric Pokemon. I'm trying to think of my actual favourite. Oh, Electabuzz? Yeah, Electabuzz. Right. This thing is definitely broken down. Gen 5, yeah, so my favourite was, Diamond's Gen 4, right? Mine was Gen 4. But I never played after that, because I didn't have, like, the new games. That's the main reason, otherwise I probably would've. Otherwise I probably would've. Thank God we made it. Didn't think we were for a second, man. Oh, it's not a dumb question at all. I'll show you. Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's why I didn't really like the idea of it.
Nice.
That's why. So when you set your Pokemon, you have your actual Poke Party up there. Nice. We've changed outfits. This is a little way you can see it on stream. You can also buy Pokemon eggs as well, so you can get rarer and higher IV Pokemon, and they have a chance to hatch via watch time. Yeah, but you gotta equip them. Well, if you have your Pokemon still sorted, or if you still had any, I moved it into a better system of well, a more optimized system of like tracking people's Pokemon, but and a reward. Oh, mastermind viewer. My own viewer. I've been caught. Oh no. Been busted. Where am I going? I'm lost. I need to buy more armor. That's what I was doing. That's alright. Close enough. Boom. How do you buy eggs? It's exclamation mark buy egg, I believe. No?
Hey.
Hold on. I did know this. I have it actually open right next to me as well. Because it was... It's only 15k for an egg. Yeah, there you go. You can buy 1 to 3 eggs. That's why it didn't like me. Yeah. And you can buy 1 to 3. That's why I'll buy 3. No, I'm brokey. I'm a brokey. But the eggs have a cool animation, and I've made all the animations. It's chips. Sorry, Crimson, not coins. Points also works too. I'll do 100k for you guys. You can also buy encounters as well. I think the only rough part is it's the commands in the sheet aren't correct. It's like Pokegen encounter 1. It's a bit fucking annoying. Not gonna lie. Not gonna lie. No, it's it hatches via watch time. And there's a chance of it randomly being rewarded to you for being a viewer as well in the stream. So everyone has a chance just while it's chilling. It's like it's a random like egg lottery essentially. No, they're all legal ones. She just fucking lurks and gets those fucking what's it called? All those fucking raffles, dude. She's crazy, man. She's onto it hard. Top Chips is crazy, dude. It's crazy business. It's like, it makes it hard too. And you can buy so much stuff. Like, I've added much more stuff you can buy, but then people kind of forgot about it. Like, no one's using it. Yeah, definitely hacking. No one's using, like, the song requests and stuff like that. Because there's full song requests all tied into, like, the chippies and the channel points if you want to do it. Like, you can buy all the sound effects and that. But I think it's too much, honestly. Can't do any more with that for now. That's AS. It's AS. Oh, it's exclamation mark inventory. Build PC, sorry. Like so. You do gamble a lot too. And Pokédex as well. Pokédex 1 for Gen 1, Pokédex 2 for Gen 2, Pokédex 3 for Gen 3. So if you want to do your Gen 3, I'll do exclamation mark Pokédex space 3. And if you look in the images tab, you'll have your Pokédex image. I added more IVs too because I'm a nerd. Alright, out of here we get. 30 seconds left to get into that raffle too. Is there a garage here as well? Actually, before I do that, let's look at upgrades. What do we not have in our mansion? Additional rooms. I can add an armory now. But now we don't even need it because we got it in the agency. I have to do the cert mission to get the arcade. No point having the podium, and this is just a regular vehicle workshop. Nothing in here I actually need, right? You need to put Pokeball between your number and the buy item there, Aussie. It's extra buy item, sorry, space Pokeball, space the number you want to buy. Actually, no need. I've already got an armory here. Exclamation buy item, Pokeball 1. You can buy nest balls, dusk balls. Does it say that buy should work though? Because that's my bad for the case. It shouldn't though. Which doesn't say it in Pokemon here, does it? Yeah, that's probably that would help. Nice. You got a Torchic. Whoa. Pokemon. People testing it out. Yay. You got a Master Ball too. Getting scorched. Jazz has bought 100 Master Balls. Oh, holy shit.
Hey, boss. Hey, other boss. I'm done with the analysis on that data we pulled from the FIB.
So what we looking at?
I'm seeing 3 data signatures in 3 different places, all matching up with Dre's phone.
Damn, so
oh no.
People got copies of this thing, right?
Yep. And they all went dark a while ago. I have a last known location.
Yeah, it is. That's why I said oh no.
Shit.
You're onto it.
Yeah. I got the deets on your computer back at the office. I'll go through it when you're back.
Another Pokemon's hatching too. Oh my god. Oh my god, what's going on? I've never had this all happen at once. Fucking hell. So much going on. That's cool though, dude. I'm happy you guys are loving it. And it's, I can fix it up a little bit. There's a few bugs in it. There's a few bugs. Like the fact that it's still on my screen. It's not meant to do that. But I'm not gonna lie, it's the first time I've had like 3 or 4 go off at once. That's alright. Things break so they can be fixed. Now what do we need to do here? Pokemon scene. We do this. That'll help. Alrighty. If anyone could do me a favour that got hatches just by doing !Bill's PC and see if they all come in. Just to make sure you got them. So I think you got them. I think the animation week. Well, not I think. I'm like 100 that you got them, but I'll start the next one of these. Yeah, you got your Torchic. And then it was just Jordan. Jordan's catching Pokemon and fish, bro. It's going hard. And you can like go deeper and get a more detailed information about each of these Pokemon. I think you do Bill's PC, and then so if I do it for myself, I have a Bulbasaur. So I do Bill's PC, and then I go like 1. It should tell me more information on just that Bulbasaur, or is it info 1? Because you can also sell Pokemon too. Trade them. Trading works, and I've tested it out with Jazz that 100% works. I'm trying to see what it is though. That's not the one. No, that's the only thing I haven't done yet is evolutions. But I was thinking about adding XP based on time watched. Yeah, nice. Trapinch. That's the only other thing.
So, 3 copies, 3 locations, 3 owners.
Oh damn.
The only way we can plug the leak is tracking down all of them. We'll do it one by one.
When can you battle people? How to train it? Oh my god. I have to give you more items.
I need to do some legwork to find out where they are now.
The thing is it's all set up to do it. Like, so I've got all the back end for XP. Like, XP already exists. So if you look, your Pokemons actually have level. Hence why it says level 1. I've just like I've not gone through and done the other bits because I want to make sure it works perfectly fine. But it's working pretty good. I could definitely do the evolutions. One of the things I wanted to do before we did evolutions though was what was it? Oh, I found that. Is that gonna work out again? Yeah, so like that time, that was fun. Was the different mega evolutions and stuff. You know, because you have shinies. There's a chance of shinies. There's someone that has a shiny at the moment. I think it's Crave. Yeah. And I think the shiny odds are the same odds as an egg dropping randomly to a viewer. So, well, which one of these should we do? Should we just start with the first one? I have the Pokies for it. I'm going to do nightlife because why not?
Okay, this copy of Dre's phone last popped up at a nightclub that looks like it's owned by the Triads. That doesn't mean it's still there, but it's all we got. We'll call you when you're on your way.
Oh, my wall safe's got a bit of money. Now, do the contracts matter if you do VIP contracts, or do you have to only do the non-VIP contracts to count to that 200? So if it counts these $1 million ones, then it shouldn't be too bad, right? Like, it's not terrible. That's ass. That's straight ass. That is straight ass. Where do we need to go? Exit emergency.
Hey, so who's ready to go see some triads? They opened up a new club in
That's a
town,
nice
but
call.
that shit probably a front. I don't give a fuck about that. What I do give a fuck about is that we know a copy of Dre's phone was in there not too long ago. Now let's go take a look around, see what the fuck we can find.
This is not a bad little spot too. I think this is nice and central. I'll have to wait until we do a few more missions to figure out whether or not it's like in a really good location. But I was looking at it and like a highway north and south, right? You get to the north and south side of the city pretty easily. East and west just there, which also goes straight to Toledo.
This system is an antique. It's not even online, so we'll need the actual.
You get to all parts of the city within seconds.
Shit, I thought this was gonna be difficult.
Not seconds, minutes I should say. So 3 setups, 1 mish. Cool. You're giving me ideas for the Pokemon there, Ozzy. I'll have to get into it. I could send you the streamer bot setup too, bro, if you want it. I mean, also though, I think we talked about it. It's the one that's on it's the one that's on the streamerbot site, but then I've added a lot more to it, and then I've optimized the fucking shit out of it. Optimized the shit out of it. Especially like PNG sizes and stuff like that. It was using like full art vectors and stuff like that, and that's not smart. Let's use smaller sized images, right? Just me wrong here. Yeah, most likely, bro. I mean, I still got the oh, I didn't realize Veronat's still on the screen. No one told me. Oh, at least that was a good time. Oh, when did you come back? You have to equip a different Pokeball. It's exclamation mark equip ball, and then the ball you want to equip. You have great balls. Yeah. No. Not silent anymore. You can also change them at a whim. By using, like when you go catch, you can just change the ball you're using. You know what I mean? Maybe you don't know what I mean. But yeah, if you go exclamation mark catch space great ball, then you'll just automatically throw a great ball instead. It's a person? But I can't shoot, okay. Going this way? There's some poor patrons. Taken over. Another Pokemon. Whipper. I actually fix this on the fly. Might be a little bit annoying. Nice. Hey, that's still on that message though. Something to do that. Let's get a step. Oh, better if I could fix it by the looks of it. Gotta leave again. Where'd he go? Is it up here? Exit 3. Yeah, man. Right, let's go. We gotta try and fix this if you're gonna buy more eggs, though. Boom. Let's get out of here. To the agency. Not crash into any fucking poles, that'd be ideal. And we're gone. Yeah, because all it's doing right now is that when it hatches your eggs, it's not hiding the previous Pokemon. I have it set up for everything else, and it's only because in order to get the Pokemon in the right position, because each Pokemon's a different size, right, for evolution A, B, or C, because some Pokemon have 1 evolution, some have 2, some have 3, and depending on how many evolutions a Pokemon has, depends on like where it should sit on the battle pad. And yeah, it's just a pain in the fucking ass to set up, so I had to do 3 to get it. Oh, can I not land like that? Ah yes, there's no Voltix there, right? Just be using that. Oh, no, I'm gonna crash. Oh, that's lucky. Terrible driving. Or flying, I should say, rather. In we go. Nice.
Alright, cool.
Right, now, where is it? Egg hatch. Right, where is it? What am I looking for here? See if I can quickly fix it. Just sitting here for a second. I'm sorry, chat. Because I thought I could quickly fix it, but I don't think I can. Pokemon scene visible. Oh, there's another one happening already. Not gonna happen right now, is it? What'd you guys get? Who got that? Oh, nice. Pidgey. I'm actually struggling here though, chat. I'm trying to find where I've made these guys visible and invisible. Alright, this one. Alright. Found it. Found it, chat. Boom. There you go. Fixed. It's because I only changed it once instead of 3 times. Dunsky's. I'll quickly run another rough if you guys check. So I just sat it doing nothing. Let's get back into this. So now, next time it hatches, it'll actually bugger off our screen. Now, a quick money check. So I have to do the 3 setups right, and then I get the cash holder, eh? 250 bucks. Ballin'. Oh, it's pending. Tripping. Right. Have I got called by Madrazo yet? I don't think so, right? Let me make sure I use X-ray shot trying to get out of that raffle. Just to spam this quickly. Do I have? I can go buy
Looking good, boss.
the car wash, and then we can even start the favor stuff, right? Because that's kind of halfway through the car wash. I gotta wait for the phone call. Both from Iman and from Madraza, right, before I can get this sucker down here. What kind of stuff are we sitting at? Probably could sell a few of my businesses. It's probably worth checking. We've been fucking around for a while.
Hey, bosses.
You're
Got the
kidding.
guy with this copy of Dre's phone.
Head back to the office when you're ready, partner.
Am I just like waiting that long that the timing's perfect or what? Alright, let's see if I fixed it. It's Cubone.
Everything okay?
Yay! I think. No, didn't fix it. Fuck. I fixed the first one. That doesn't make any sense to me. Interesting. I'll have to figure that out. Alright, let's do this next mission. I want this cool meal, bro. I'll be back at 5. Before we get done tonight as well. Large. 100k, you nearly had $1 billion yourself, bro. 945k. And you're not even gambling, you're just waiting for the fucking raffles roll around, which is it's cheeky business, man. It's cheeky business. Because we're all still around, he's doing his own stuff. That's crazy. Who is our top chip holders at the moment? Oh, Caps. Yeah, Jazz of the bill, Haas of the 30 mil. Hey! Oh, it's because it's 900k. I can't fucking math, dude. Oh my god, man. 900k going on $1 billion. I'm a fucking idiot, dude. Can't count. That's disappointing. Bam bam. These set missions are pretty straightforward anyway. I'm just smashed out. I took all the Joeys. You can also duel people for chippies. The reaction time duels. Oh, I think that's where you stole the chippies off of, actually, isn't it?
Hey, what's up, Imani? Shit, what we got?
Young dude, snappy dresser. Took me like 2 seconds to find his Life Invader profile. He's a club promoter.
Now you sure he's the one with Dre's phone?
Well, status is 1,000 likes, and this god is leaking the most exclusive tracks you've ever heard to 100 exclusive ticket holders. So...
That's cool.
So where do we
Oh,
find
you got no great boys to equip your normal Pokeballs raw. Quick!
went from the club to the marina.
Shit,
Let's get X-Space White catch Space Pokeball. Why can I not? Why can't I start this? Am I tripping? Oh, just being weird. Oh, research complete as well. Oh wow, you're having some bad luck here. Be a high IV Pokemon probably. Just got let out of jail. Oh no. Oh no. Out of jail or that? That's the question. Agency Super Volito. What's this actually like? I'm sorry, Raw. Flygon's out. If we did have high IV, it would have for sure. How'd you get back in it in time anyway? There you go.
Hey,
okay, when you find the Toro, start it up.
Oh, I probably shouldn't have skipped that.
GPS working, and if we're lucky, it'll have a recent destination or waypoint or something.
There you go, the MOC. Oh, you got heaps of pokies now, bro. I actually regret skipping that part. I didn't want to skip the bloody phone calls. Oh well. You win some, you lose some. The Super Volita is so shit to fly. The fuck? Where's this guy? It's angry at me. In the water. Yeah, you having a rough time down there, bud. I want this big one here. Easy done. You're nearly there? Oh, you have it in time for tomorrow, but that's no worries. I thought just checked if you guys could hit Discord then. That wigged me out hearing them say that. For work and all that. Yeah, exactly, man. It's a big day tomorrow. So the actual heist comes out now. Oh, I just needed to go to the boat. Let's trigger the next part. So Crimson's gonna be finishing it for us. Or not. Or not indeed. But yeah, I think the update comes out at 7 PM for us tomorrow. So you have until then to have enough to like have the art gallery bonuses and stuff like that. Or the art gallery discount. 600k though, you should be fine. And it's like, 2 acid labs, 2 counterfeit cash factories, 1 clock and bell. This takes ages on the boat, eh? How far out do we have to go? Really long this boat mission, eh? Everyone loves boats. These are good boats though. Is this it's a Toro? I was using the longfin and I was like, holy shit, that longfin is sick. From the Polito heist, I want to buy one straight up. Yeah, we wouldn't miss much of that phone call anyway as well, right? Because bloody, I'm assuming this is going to be the same every time.
Okay, we're looking for anything that'll help us work out where he's holding the party. If you see anything, just snap a pic and send it to me.
Like this is a hike. Finally here. Nice. I didn't even board the boat in time.
Bingo. That's Dre, and that's the Diamond Casino.
So that's where you're gonna meet Dre's tracks, huh?
Yeah, I bet. I'll check it out.
Alright, shit, job done. Hey, partner, get off the boat.
Nice. It's a good RPG shot. His daddy's such a poser. Is that my Madrazo's bloody kid again? If you want to, Crimson, you can jump in the boat. And I'll just fly back. Oh. Nice, 10k. Easy done, and they'll just fly away. That's one more setup, and then we get a cool mill, is it? to land. This is just part one. Doesn't actually take a fair few bits to it. Takes a fair few bits, eh? I'm gonna get my service bloody vehicle because I can't be fucked using a speedboat the whole time. God damn, it's all convoluted. You're right though, much more like the bloody Block and Bell raid. Oh, device been dogged, but is it not gonna oh, Mark Madrazo's there though. That's actually kind of good because then I can get the money fronts business sorted. No, not me. Well, he dressed like a pirate. Oh, I thought Raw was getting off. Hey, what's this? Raw cartel. I made a grave mistake going back to the boat, I think. Time to get the boat back in the water. Fuck. I'm just gonna kill myself. Quick little. Gonna stay with me? Bam. Is this gonna give you a good respawn point though? Yeah. Look at that. I'm smart. Now I can get a car wash.
Hey, it's you again.
Yeah, I hear that.
I hate to say it, but I
Is it downstairs or is it upstairs? I'm assuming upstairs.
You don't think I'm too old?
Hey, bosses.
Hey, what's up, Imani? Hey, how's it looking down at the Diamond?
Well, our promoter is renting a penthouse for some hyper-exclusive party, and his bleeder is all about the leak coming tonight.
Alright, look, we gonna crash that shit. Now get back to the office so we can move on this asshole.
Don't worry, you'll learn
You're
one
nice.
day.
Do this though. I want to do this. I want to get the car wash. Get that passive money. Because I just want to get it with the safe. I'm not going to get any other businesses. Especially because I already have a counterfeit cash factory. I've been selling it.
Yeah, you. Get in. Quickly.
Hey, that's the guy that beat up Michael. He beat up Michael.
All right. Come on, driver. Let's go. See. Okay. So this opportunity, it's big, my friend. This guy, his name is Favor. He's a banker. The banker. Every dollar in this fucking town, it goes through him.
No, I'm just taking the piss.
He's El Rubio's.
I'm just taking the piss.
Anybody who's in charge of anybody, their guy. And here he is.
My bad, my bad. Was that convincing? It seems like it was. Man, I hope I was like that much of a fucking space cadet. I do know some things. I played off the story to recognize that guy.
Now listen.
There's a cut heist
Let me do this.
that involves Martin Madrazo.
Style of conversation, it's well, you know.
Many don't. True, that's fair.
Ciao.
Oh, the Beatties with the Madrazos. Classic. Well, I know that's his son, right? That we did the Kaya Perico for, so surely you know it's him, right?
His fucking shoes. Okay. Knock, knock.
Ah, Martin.
Here he is. Hello, how are you, Mr. Faber?
I am well. Patricia, Miguel, they are.
Oh, fine.
So did this introduce Mr. Faber?
I've heard your name from a number of
Because I know the No Way Taxis is him. Was this the first time we've seen him?
indirectly. To others, you're just, well, a blot on their accounts. Martin has told you about me?
Also, yes. Yeah.
Well, fundamentally,
That's cool. Well, it's actually good timing on me then, because I'm about to do the court center tomorrow with this guy. I was hoping to do the contact missions before we got to it, but it doesn't actually matter that much.
Financiers help their clients to minimize tax. I help mine pay just enough to keep the accountants away. Very important if you wish to enjoy all this.
Exactly.
A financial network such as mine requires a number of businesses who are willing to collaborate.
Man, he's got a mad five-head, this dude.
Opportunity to be such a partner. My people, your people, it will be mutually beneficial. Mr. DeAngelis here has compiled a portfolio of suitable possibilities, just small to begin with.
Yes, there are a couple we could start with.
I think perhaps the details can wait until I am out of earshot.
Yeah, I wonder how it's going to end up though, because
One of my most trusted consultants.
the entirety of the story of GTA 5, basically you're working for Devon Weston, right? I like the second act and like the start of the third to like you take him out. So.
Oh yeah.
It would make sense that you, and like, in most GTA games, even the fact that we're playing Vice City Stories, right? And you eventually turn on Martinez and like, you take him out, and that's like pretty commonplace for a lot of the GTA games. Like San Andreas, you do the same thing because you like are working for Smoke and you end up like, you're blackmailed into it, but you're working for Crash as well, right? And then you end up flipping the script. You fucking get out from underneath them. Is it the same in Liberty City? In 3? 4's the same too, because you work for Vlad.
Low profile, cash intensive. I found hands-on a car wash in Strawberry. You want to start there. Meanwhile,
this guy.
Some background checks on a couple of others, potentially very lucrative if you decide to purchase them. Just run them, show them some love. You know.
I missed it. I was busy talking.
We need a steady, legit revenue stream. Then I get a tap on the shoulder from Mr. Faber. We mix in some cash assets off the books, and
I have to watch it back.
Say it how it is, Mr.
Too busy talking shit. Was it The Prisoner?
Old school. Boom. Anyway, if you choose to go forward, I'll fix what needs to be fixed. You get what I'm saying? I'll take care of the books, you take care of the problems. Mr. Faber says he wants you to be the boss, so hey, you're the boss.
You got that?
Oh.
Okay, looks like we're here.
Yep. Beautiful. Hey, just one more thing, you know, between us girls. You mentioned my boss's name.
Got the best safe in the game! The best safe in the game! I definitely didn't watch YouTube guides. Not me.
Think it over, huh? To be young and scared. Good luck.
I don't know if it's the best safe in the game. It's pretty close to it though, right? Like this and the agency one would be like on par, right? The agency one's better though once you do those missions, right? But this one's better if you own all the businesses. Which one's going to be easier or harder? There we go, meet Mr. Faber. We're going the R.
Where did you hear that?
We'll go up to this. I'm assuming I go on the R. Ah, Raph, and he's the point man on the heist.
Hey, I've been looking around the car wash and man, it's got strong potential, you know, strong potential. Check it out sometime, alright? Because if you want to do this, I want to do this.
What do you reckon, chat? You reckon this is a good business? Live right behind Franklin's house? Definitely roleplay here before. I'm acting like we're not about to buy it. Just being silly. Is it discounted? I don't think so. Might be though. Yeah, it's just a mill. But I didn't mind spending the mill on it. Oh. What's that? Because there's also the LD Organics right as well, but I don't want any of that stuff. You can change the tint for an extra 10k. What tints are there? I don't mind spending 10k on a tint. Watch you get discounted next week and I'll be depressed. Yellow and black. East Coast Infamous crew. Yeah, send. Ooh, Spiro. Now own it. How do you enter this thing? Doors over here. Also, the door is ran past. This one?
Hey, you got hands on?
No.
Yes, come see the place.
Mad. Let me in my own fucking joint. I'll have to go through this one first. Alrighty then.
Well, this is it. Your humble car wash. Dirty money comes in, clean money comes out. Now, obviously, we should wash the occasional car, you know? We need a little clean money to balance the books, but more importantly, we need a lot of dirty money. Just boot up this laptop to see what jobs we got waiting. Also, if you want to be in Mr. Faber's good graces, you want to solve problems in the network before he even knows about them. Work with his big clients, keep things running smooth. But listen, I know you're very busy, very important, so if it's something small, you can just call me, all right?
No, it's Ref talking. I was like, why is his mouth
It's
moving?
right here for you.
Alright. Expand operation. Oh, and this is how you actually buy the heli tours. That's only worth it if you have a hangar, and that's only worth it if you have a weed farm, right? What's on the lappy?
What do you need, boss?
Car wash. The air. Oh!
You thought any more about Higgins' help?
So washing the car.
Okay, boss, today we're legit. We got a client needing a wash. Told them the owner would collect and drop off the car personally
Spoon.
and in spotless condition.
Yeah. Oh, the reason I wanted this one was because it was safe and the 35% bonus on the counterfeit cash. I did not mean to start that, by the way. Spinner. Damn it. I've left my plane somewhere. My heli somewhere. Got a car coming? Yeah, presser. I'll get my bike, get wriggling.
You need
Are you giving it to me?
One of your rides?
Oh, thank you.
I'll get back to it then.
So I can actually fly one of these. No, I really need to get one of these. Just for quality of life, right?
Once you arrive, look for a lockbox. The owner should have dropped the car keys in there for you.
GTA Plus benefit. Oh. What the hell? Now it's stuck in the air. What happened there? Got beaten. Got kicked off. Oh, I can shoot it down, can't I? Where is it? Or just return it instantly? Is that the GTA Plus benefit? What is this? Oh, it's a double T. Delivery. We're nearly there anyway. It's such a good upgrade. Oh, true. True. There's a few benefits to the GTA Plus that are actually pretty worth it. It's just I like to try and keep my subscriptions down as much as possible, right? But I'm at a point now where I can like hit Discord Nitro again, and probably subscriptions like that. You driving? I'll take yours and I'll help protect us, I suppose. Oh. This is so smooth to use. I feel like I've never used an oppressor the way I'm flying this right now. I've flown the Oppressor Mark 1. Surely I've flown an Oppressor Mark 2. Have I been playing roleplay this long? I think I missed out. Maybe I have it set up so I can just one keyboard, like one hand the keyboard to control flying most things. Perfect for this at least. This is fun. Yeah, I shouldn't have done this until after, so I can actually take the heat off, but anyway. Nice. Or do I got a cutscene for this? Look at that. Service with a smile. Blaze of jobs. Send a rocket in there. Bam, no worries. Zeke's been fucking with me. This cunt's fucking with people in Zephyr. Alright, well, probably wasted a little bit of time there. Probably didn't need to do that. Good driving by me too. People race us along the streets. Oh! Oh, fucking hell. Fucking hell. Well, to be honest with you anyway, Crimson, I think that might be where I'm calling it anyway. I know it was an accident. It's funny as fuck. And you were trying to kill me, not blow up the car. Oh, that's funny as. But I think it works out. It works out. We've been sitting here doing this for a minute.
You know what? We're growing. We're learning.
My bad, lad. My bad. I didn't even blow your car up for the car wash. Blow the car up. You were trying to do it? No. Mean. Grief for me. Get the grief back. What's a different one? I won't do that. Shit. One for me. But yeah, no. I reckon I might finish it up, but because we got enough money, we're chilling. These fucking wings suck so bad. It's like the boost cars though. But yeah, thank you for helping with the grind. And I'll probably even get into small later on. I'll do some editing and that. Menace material. Works out anyway. I streamed a fair bit early today. I'm getting tired. I want to have a snack. I want to chill out. Watch some Supernatural with the missus, you know, the usual stuff. But let's go to the full cam. Bam. I think it's all good through the little grind there. We made a mill, lost a mill. Dude, I was saying this today. I didn't even realize I did this in a fucking vacuum. I did this in a vacuum. I am leaving too. I am getting off. You're late, bro. You're late. I streamed twice today. It's the second time. But yeah, no, I do. And I was watching his fucking stream. The only thing I'm missing is like the half face tattoo and shit. It's not even fucking on purpose, man. I swear to God. I try to make it not look like the character I always make. Yo, I streamed like at 12 and I want to have food, man. I'm hungry. I have like a ham cheese toast. I want some food. I want some food. Boo. I'm streaming tomorrow as well. I'm not meant to be streaming tomorrow. It's on my schedule, alright? But I will be here just for you. In the court center heist. Okay? Look at this ADHD kid. Fucking has to be perpetually fiddling. The outfit too. Yeah, but it's for the agency stuff.
Back the fuck up, you scrawny cunt with no teeth. I'll fucking knock him out. Come on, cunt.
Back the fuck up, you scrawny cunt with no teeth. I'll fucking knock him out. Ah. Yeah, exit this game. Let's make myself lightheaded. I didn't even do it on purpose, alright? I'm not fanboying that hard. I'm not fanboying that hard. I do like his content, but it is pretty funny. I like it. I like his style. I even fucking look like him in real life, but it's not good. Like, I was watching his stream, and I was just looking at his beard, being like, my fucking beard looks the same, man. I can't help it. It's not my fault, alright, chat. I'm not doing it on purpose. If you come down to the ACT bar, come for a cup of tea, bro. Always down for a cup of tea, mate, with one of the boys. Alright? Yeah, do it, bro. Drop in for a cup of tea, send it. I love it, mate. Have a ciggy, have a beer. I know some nice watering holes around Canberra. But tomorrow, going live from 7 PM for the Court Center heist. It might be a little bit after 7 because I need to download the heist and get it going. But we got Gucci Net. We'll be streaming it on YouTube. Be streaming it on Twitch. Make sure to catch it there. Be some shorts on the TikTok and the YouTubes and some more videos this week. So make sure you keep an eye out on all that stuff. Thank you guys for helping out with the grind and sitting there and watching me grind. It was a good time. We got the agency sorted. Started it off about halfway through the setups. And then we got that bloody car wash. Failed the first mission, but we're doing pretty well. We're doing pretty good money. So, Yeah, and definitely me out too, Chappy, bro. 100%. Take a photo with me. Take another one. I have to post one that we took together. I'm pretty sure. I just never posted it. But anyway, much love. Peace out. Enjoy the rest of you guys in chat. Thank you, Crimson. Thank you, Chappy. Thank you, fucking Mr. Raw, for gifting a sub to Jazzberry Blues, the absolute legend. Thank you, Ozzy, if you're still here in chat. You guys have all been legendary to stream for, as always. Have a good rest of your fucking Monday night. All right, and I'll see you guys on Tuesday stream. All right, peace in the Middle East. Much love, and fuck Kelly Holiday. Bye now. Love yous.